why I feel more free living in Britain than in America.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
Well, not me personally. Today we're reacting to a woman. I've watched about 10 seconds of the intro. Looks like she moved from the US over to the UK and is going to give us her reasons why she feels more free there. I'm really curious to hear her out. I've always had this dream of mine of actually living inside of Britain, London or something. Ever since I was a kid, I was always fascinated with the area. And yeah, I'm just curious why she feels more free there, because counter to common American status, we would feel that it's more free here in America than it is in Britain. But, you know, hopefully she proves me wrong, and I don't know, maybe I'll sell the house and book some plane tickets and move out there. All right, nonetheless, let's go ahead and hop into the video. Hey, do me a favor, you guys, before we start, go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button. I react to everything that is outside of America. So Europe, Canada, Australia, China, wherever. I'm just curious about all the cultures that I know absolutely, I wouldn't say nothing, but very minimal about. So let's go.
In the UK, I can cross the road wherever I want to cross the road. I can look to see if there's traffic with my own eyes, and I can just decide to walk across that road with no fear of a fine or a ticket or getting in trouble. Which sounds more free to you? Hi, and welcome back to the Girl Gum.
Okay, I guess, do you guys not get like jaywalking tickets when you live in Britain? You can get them here. I mean, never gotten one in my whole life. I've jaywalked dozens of times, but apparently, yeah, I guess you don't get jaywalking tickets if you walk out in the street when there is a bunch of cars driving. So for us, we have to cross the crosswalks, but nonetheless, all right, let's keep going.
Today I am discussing all the ways in which I feel more free in the UK than in the USA. And this is a funny topic, I suppose, because America associates itself with freedom and the fact that Americans are free. But I was thinking about whether I would want to move back to America, and it has changed at various points in my life here in the UK. If you don't know, I am a dual UK and US citizen, so technically I could live in either country. And I have chosen for multiple reasons, but some of these in this video to be in the UK. When I think about moving to America, there are some things that come up that I'm not entirely sure I could deal with, and that made me realize that actually my life here in the UK seems more free than it would be in the USA. So let's get started. Okay. Number one, and this is probably the biggest way in which I feel I have more freedom here in the UK, has to do with healthcare. Now, the reason I was thinking about this is not just the fact that I can go to the doctor here and not pay anything, or have a surgery and not pay anything. It's also to do with the fact that I am self-employed. And so if you're self-employed in a place like the UK that has a nationalized healthcare system, it means that you don't have to factor this in to your job, or what it means if you lose a job or gain a job or anything like that. And if you're British, you're probably a little bit confused if you're not familiar with how it works in the US. So in the US, having health insurance is essentially mandatory to be able to go to the doctor, to get surgeries, like to get help. If you don't have anything at all, technically you can still get emergency help, but it's a whole big thing. So in general, you need health insurance.
Yeah, I mean, the healthcare thing is like always popping up. I think I've talked about it like once or twice already on the channel from reacting to a couple of different videos. Our healthcare system sucks. It does. It has not always been horrible. There was a point where it was actually pretty good and like really affordable. $50 a month, you know, $100 maybe for like a family of 5 or 6. Over the years, as we have tried to move towards kind of having like a larger healthcare system with Medicaid, that has in turn increased prices privately because we don't have socialized medicine. If we did have socialized medicine, the amount that it costs for me to pay for healthcare right now, $800 a month, $800, that I would still have to pay that. I would just do it through taxes. So essentially kind of the same thing. It's just you're choosing whether you want to pay it out of your own pocket or if you're paying it out of a socialized plan. So yeah, healthcare, I mean, I don't know. Is everyone going to the doctor and like getting all kinds of stuff done constantly? Like I take no medications, and if you are, I like totally understand, but maybe it's just because I don't really go to the doctor other than once every couple of years. I don't really get hurt. And if I do, I go to the, if I have to go to the hospital, I have health insurance and it's not much, I pay like 25 or $50 to get in there and it's not really that expensive. We do use it a lot for the kids, obviously, but yeah, I don't know.
Typically, health insurance is going to be attached to a job, but it's going to be attached to a salaried job, and it's considered part of the perks of the job. So people in the US who are self-employed or freelancers or...
Point I was trying to get across there is I think that we all just need to get a lot healthier. Emergency visits, yes, very important. We need to be able to get to the hospital and see doctors if we're having an emergency. You break an arm, you cut off a finger, something like that. Yes, we need medical attention. I wish all of that was completely free. Wish we didn't have to pay for it. Here, at least, you guys get it. Not really for free. You pay in taxes, but I think we all need that. But I think the bigger point is that people just need to get healthier, specifically here in the United States. People are very, very, very unhealthy. I don't know what it's like over there in Europe. Let me know in the comments.
Not in a traditional 9-to-5 salaried position, still need health insurance, but it doesn't come with your job as a perk. So you then have to source that health insurance for yourself, pay the monthly fees, which can be extortionate. So we're not talking like $50 a month here. We're talking at least in the multiple hundreds per month in order to have health insurance in case you have any sort of medical need. So if I were to move to the US right now, I would feel a lot less free financially because I would have to be paying, again, extortionate amounts for health insurance every month. And I might not even have the freedom to be self-employed in the US because of how much extra that adds on per month and per year to your costs. And again, after you have the health insurance in America, you still often have what we call a copay, which is the money you still need to pay towards the doctor's appointment or towards the surgery or towards the hospital visit or whatever it is. So let's say that your insurance does cover your doctor, you might still have a $50 copay, which means that you still need to pay out of pocket $50 every time you have a doctor's appointment. And yes, the insurance will cover the rest, but you're still paying out of pocket. Here in the UK, if I have any sort of issue that I need to see a doctor for, I don't worry about budgeting for it. I'm just able to go. And in that way, I think that I get much better healthcare here in the UK because I'm not worried about the financial aspect of it. I don't second guess whether I really need to be seen or can just like fix myself on WebMD because it doesn't cost me money at the point of interaction here in the UK. Yes, you pay through it through your taxes, you pay through it in other ways. Everybody always says the NHS isn't free. It's not free overall, but it is free to each individual at the point of interaction. So it's much different to the American system, which is not free at any point, and even if you have health insurance, you are often still paying out of pocket.
All right, valid point. My family would probably benefit from this, having like socialized medicine. I think because, my wife does all the budgeting and I'm sure she would just love if that amount just got taken out of the taxes and she didn't have to see that bill come through every month. So, there is some benefit to it. I would love to do I got to do a reaction where we can break down income tax in the States compared to other countries. And then what's the average amount that you pay out of your tax in other countries towards medical, and then kind of figure out the difference, because if I pay 30% in income tax or 28%, if I'm paying 40% in another country and 10% of X amount is this much, would it be more or less than what I currently pay for health insurance for a year? So that'd be really interesting. I'm sure somebody's done the math on it, but all right, let's see what her other reason is.
And this is much more trivial, but it does have to do with the public access to land here in the UK. Watch my countryside video that I posted recently if you haven't seen that, where I talk about the public access to footpaths here in the UK, meaning that you can essentially roam or walk through privately owned land a lot of times because you have right of way as the public on a footpath. In America, it is not like this at all. Private land is basically private land, and you can go to, of course, a park or a national park or something like that, but you can't usually just leave your house or pick a particular spot and keep wandering for a long time. It's a much more private system that has no public access or right of way in that sense.
Okay.
So I feel like I can move a little bit more freely in the UK when it comes to walking. And also, my third reason that I feel more free in the UK than in the USA is
Before she gets into the third reason, that reason, I don't, that's cool. If she likes that as her reason, I feel free to go wherever I want. You know, I don't really ever experience, we also don't walk here. We literally drive from place to place, so I'm not out walking. If I did live in a big city, which I go into Nashville occasionally, and I guess that's more of if you're in a larger metro, but not really a reason that I would, you know, pick. But yeah, all right, we'll keep going.
public transportation. So America, for the most part, is run on cars. Now, a lot of the UK is also run on cars. If you go to Cornwall, you're probably going to want a car. There are buses, but a car is going to get you places much faster. However, the vast majority of the UK is really well connected by trains, by buses, and by other forms of transportation than a car. So it means here, I have more options. Maybe I still do want to take a car into the countryside, but if I didn't have one, I could check out the local buses. I could check out the trains. The train system in the UK can get you very, very far and to tons of different places. As you saw in my Great Missenden video the other day, I can go to this countryside feeling village 40 minutes on the train from London, no car necessary. The next thing on my list, and it's just
Y'all win on the public transportation thing. We don't have any public transportation here. Like I just said, we drive cars everywhere. I don't never really use public transportation, but I feel like it would be very convenient, especially if you were in a bigger city, that you're able to just walk out of your home or apartment and hop on a bus or a train and really get somewhere very quickly. I still think I would prefer to drive a car, especially I have 3 kids, so wife, 3 kids. There's 5 of us. Getting in the car is very convenient because we're all in our own vehicle. We can get somewhere, but I don't mind driving, but it would be nice to be, taken to my destination.
To me because I don't really drink, but if we're putting this list together for your average American versus British life, in the UK, the drinking age is 18, whereas in America, it is 21. So in that way, the UK seems more free and at an earlier age. The next thing on my list, again, has to do with my employment. And this really, as I've mentioned, is what has gotten me thinking about this subject. And this is to do with employment rights and paid leave. So when you talk about freedom, in the UK, if I were to work a traditional 9-to-5 salaried position, I would be guaranteed by the government 28 paid days of annual leave per year. In the US, if I were the same...
28 days? Seriously? I mean, I knew y'all got more than us, but I didn't think 28, that's a whole month. You get a whole month of paid vacation. I mean, I'm self-employed, so I can kind of take vacations whenever I want, but I don't. I maybe take off like 7 days, 10 days out of the year. 28 days, though, when I was, working a salary position. That would be really, really nice. That's a huge benefit. I could see why she likes that.
Salaried 9-to-5 job. There are no federal government requirements for how many days I could have off. That, again, is seen as like a perk of the job, so you hope to pick a job that offers you enough leave or enough days off, or vacation days as we call it in America, but there is no federal mandate for how many days this has to be. It could be 0. And even when you do tend to get vacation days included in your job in America, it usually is much less than in the UK, which is why in the UK...
It depends on the company you're working for. I think I was a marketing director at one point, and that was the most vacation days I ever got, and I believe I got 2 weeks out of the year. 2 weeks, so 10 days of vacation the whole year.
Europe, actually, people tend to think of like the summer holidays or the winter holidays or whatever it is, as people can take multiple week trips sometimes. But in my experience, Americans almost never have that 28 days off per year, or even more in some other European countries. They're going to have fewer days, and so their trips need to be...
You have to have like a killer job to get a whole month off. I got a buddy that lives in Florida that's about how much time that he gets, and I'm jealous.
Shorter, maybe 5 days, maybe 7 days at a max. Taking a 2 or 3 week trip, as people can often do in the
sounds
UK
so nice.
or in Europe, is definitely not something that happens that much. So I think to myself, if I were to move back to America tomorrow, maybe let's say I'm not self-employed anymore and I do work a traditional 9-to-5 job, I would feel in that way less free than I have felt in the jobs that I've worked here in the UK. And that would be a huge and hard adjustment to make. The next thing on my list is the lower higher education fees here in the UK, which I can personally attest to because I did do my full master's degree here in the UK, so I know how much it costs here, even as an international student, versus how much doing a master's degree would cost in the USA. I've mentioned this in my video about things that are cheaper in the UK than in the USA, but higher education is definitely one of those. So when you compare the costs,
Yeah, I would imagine so. We're having, like, here in the United States, we're having a huge crisis with student loan debt. So student loan debt is absolutely out of control. It's less than 40% of people that got student loans are paying for their student loans. And they are now making it that you are going to have to start paying that again, or they're going to garnish everyone's wages. And it's just, you know, my generation spent way too much on education and went into way too much debt. They sign these huge loans when they're 18 years old going to college, and then don't ever use their degrees. And now they're stuck with like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Being here and not having to spend as much for higher education, I'm all for it. I think it's higher education, the amount that they charge here at least, is a huge scam. So she's got a good point here.
here in the UK, to the $50,000, $60,000 per year cost for some universities in the US. I mean, which one seems more doable to you? Which one seems like that country has more freedom? I don't know. There's a lot of good things about America, but the more I make this list, I'm like, there's a lot of ways in which there is so much more freedom here in the UK that maybe people don't realize. And of course, the most obvious one, I have left it to this point on the list, has to do with firearms. So yes, there is crime in the UK. Yes, there is an increase in different types of crime.
I'm already not going to like this one. I can tell you that much. Okay, let's go.
In different cities. It's nothing compared to how you feel in America at all times, knowing that firearms are allowed to be held by your average citizen. And what I will say is that when you live in America for long periods of time or you grow up there, this is a fact of life you have to get used to. So do you necessarily go around fearing this all of the time?
No.
Not necessarily, because you do have to become kind of immune to that fear in order to live your life. But now that I've lived in the UK and I can go to the movie theater, I can go to the mall, I can go to a restaurant without fearing some sort of gun violence incident. When I go back to the US now, I am very aware. So if I go to like a crowded movie theater or a crowded mall, I do look around and I think of what could potentially happen. And this wasn't a way that I thought when I lived in America, as I said, so you do have to become immune to it a little bit. But now that I've experienced a place where that fear is not always present, it doesn't make sense to me to go back to that fear, and it doesn't make me feel more free to think of a life in America where I would have to be, or feel like I would have to second guess the places I would go and how crowded they are and who might have access to.
Okay, I understand the viewpoint that she has here. Completely understand it. You know, I don't live in fear, so I don't experience it. I understand it, but I just don't experience it. You know, their gun violence is not as bad as like the media makes it sound. I've never seen really anyone, I've never been within 50 miles of any type of like mass shooting or anything like that. It's very rare. When it does happen, it's a tragedy. It's horrible. You know, it's just one of the costs that we have here in America of keeping our government in check. We can never really be overtaken by our government because we are armed. We are an armed nation. And that's kind of the point that most people would make. But you can carry, like you can get I don't have one, but you can carry. I do have weapons, I have guns, but you can have a concealed carry. You know, just the other day, I was dropping my kids off at school and there was a police officer walking in, open carried. I don't know if he was technically a police officer. It looked like he was more of like a detective or something. Gun hanging out. I go to the store. You will see people open carrying, gun on their side. But I live in Tennessee, so everyone is very armed. And when more people are armed and when restrictions are lower for guns, we don't have as much gun violence. Yes, single shootings happen here and there between two different individuals, but like as for like mass shootings, those usually happen when guns are restricted and they are in gun-free zones. So this is such a touchy topic, and I already know what the comments are going to look like when I give my viewpoint on this. So it is what it is. I am curious, though, what the crime is like in Britain and London. You know, I'm on social media, so I'm on X. I see stabbings all the time. I see them being recorded. It's like that. I would be more worried, like if I was there, of getting stabbed than I would be of getting shot. If we're talking about like actual fear, like I'm more fearful of going to like a city that has like a high crime rate with stabbings than actually being, I guess, where I'm at currently right now. You know, I'm not going to drive into South Compton without any type of protection right now, but it all depends on like the area where you live at. Most communities here in America, there's not much gun violence. I live in a very safe area. I understand the reason that she has this and where she's coming from. I can resonate with her on it. If I could wave a magic wand, let me preface this. If I could wave a magic wand, there would be no guns in the entire world. I'm against war. I'm against violence. I don't like any of it. But it's a reality that we have to live with, and bad people usually find a way to get guns, and they are available to almost every country. There is some type of gun somewhere. There always will be. As long as they're here, we can't really do anything about it. But I understand where she's coming from, essentially.
And to counter that, another trivial one is jaywalking. So in America, there are lots of laws in different states that you cannot simply cross the road wherever you would like to cross the road. By law, you have to cross the road at a dedicated crossing. And if you don't, you could run the risk of getting yourself a ticket or some sort of fine. You're likely not going to be put in jail for jaywalking, but it's still something that is codified as not legal. So again, you're looking at some sort of punishment or at least a slap on the wrist from a police officer. In the UK, I can cross the road wherever I want to cross the road. I can look to see if there's traffic with my own eyes, and I can just decide to walk across that road with no fear of a fine or a ticket or getting in trouble. Which sounds more free to you? And finally,
I don't know. Again, it's like just a reason that, I don't know. I've jaywalked before. Cops aren't pulling over pedestrians to give them jaywalking tickets. I mean, I've never experienced it. I've never known anyone that's experienced it. So I guess it's a reason for her, though.
On my list, and this is an interesting one. We might do a religion in the UK versus the USA video at some point in time. But it's a little bit of a nuanced topic because we'll take England as an example. England has an official religion, the Church of England. America doesn't have an official religion. However, Americans tend to be more religious. So again, there's layers to this topic. However, when it comes to people in power, in the UK, I feel like there is much more of a freedom of becoming somebody in power, whether that's at a more local level or a national level, regardless of your religion. The current leader of the Labour Party who are in power is an atheist. Rishi Sunak is a Hindu. It doesn't necessarily play into people's minds what somebody's personal, private religious beliefs are when it comes to their ability to lead. You might have problems with people based on a number of other reasons, but typically religion, again, is seen as private, and in some ways that gives more freedom for people of all different religions to achieve lots of different things and hold this position of power. All
right, I'm gonna be completely honest. She's wrong here. She's completely wrong here. There is more diverse religions here in America than basically anywhere on earth. North. We have more freedom on religion. I don't even know how she's making this a point. Maybe she's going to tell me right now, but yeah. This one, she's wrong on this one.
America, it can tend to be more difficult for someone to be in a position of power without being a part of the majority religion, which is Christianity. So it doesn't always come into play. I'm not saying that it's never happened. People do have different religious beliefs and have held office, but people do think about it more. They do question it more. And there has currently been no president that has declared themselves as an atheist or not having a religion, and to me that would seem like something that would not be possible right now in America.
Not declared, but a lot of them are atheist. They'll say whatever they need to say. I mean, there's plenty of politicians that are not like your traditional Christian. I mean, there's literally dozens and dozens of them in Congress and the Senate. So, like, yeah, it's not really a valid reason. But hey, everyone's got their own viewpoint. I'm here, and yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the video. I appreciate the recommendation, you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Appreciate you watching. See ya. Bye.